Charter Commission for the Town of Harwich to order. It's October 30th. We have present Linda, Sandy, John, Richard, and Lou. So we do a quorum. They're called to order. First order of business was the approval of the regular minutes for October 23rd.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any changes, corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. 5-0. Judith is on her way, so I would like to take some things out of order, if that's all right with you gentlemen. Hearing no objections, I'm going to move on like Mike Ford does. Hearing no objections, I'm on the move. Number 5, any other topics that may come before the commission? I did go to the select board Monday night and did invite them to one of our meetings. I have not heard back yet, so we will see. Now, request for input from town departments. On July 10th in our minutes, we decided not to ask for input from town departments. Would we like to ask for input from town department heads?
I would like to.
Okay, Sandy?
I would like to, but I'd like to add to that. I'd like to have them not come in person, but I'd like comments from them at least.
Well, we will ask them for comments.
Okay.
John?
Yes, I think so. Maybe not every department, but
We could probably we can send out a blanket email to the department heads asking for their input.
okay.
You okay with that, Richard?
Fine.
All right, so we will do that. Okay. And Mr. Liu has graciously agreed to be the clerk since Tony had resigned from the commission.
Thanks, Lou.
I move
My
that we
pleasure.
elect Lou Urbano to be clerk of the commission.
Second.
Lou, I'm not going to ask you if you have any objections. Anybody, any other comments?
Just thank him.
Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. And thank you very much, Lou, for stepping up. Appreciate it.
Of course, you realize the clerk doesn't get to talk.
Nobody gets paid.
Right.
They do?
Every penny he's worth.
I'm going to say, huh?
Uh-huh.
All right, well, I think we might, would we like to just start with the interviews?
Yeah.
All right. Just for the town's knowledge, we have an open position on the Charter Commission, and the state law allows us to vote the members of the commission, even though we were all elected, it allows us to vote to appoint someone to the open position. So that is what we were doing here. The term goes until we are finished with our work, which is about another year. We do meet every Thursday night, and so with that being said, which one of you would like to be first? I have Mr. McManus, Mr. Lowney, and Mr. Nickerson here, as they all look at each other.
Don't all rush up here at once.
They don't all rush up, okay.
We're not that bad.
Most of us.
Most.
All right, Bob Nickerson. Who wants to start with questions?
Oh, I'll start. You will be available every Thursday night for the
Yes,
foreseeable future?
I wouldn't be here if I wouldn't commit to it.
And why would you like to do this?
Well, Sandy, as you know, in 2022, I came to your meetings for over a month. It was very apparent that no one was going to step off that committee. So I was interested back at that time, and since then, obviously, there's other things I got interested in, like president of the Nickerson Family Association for 5 years and such as that. So, but I think this is a very important process you're going through, and I'd be more than happy to be part of the team in trying to go through the process. And I think it's good to have a variety of thought processes in this, because there's so many things you want to try to accomplish and try to get it right. So that's one of my, I guess, why I was interested at all in coming to this and looking at me and see if I would be a good fit for you. And I've been involved in a lot of different committees, a lot of things that I have to, debate with each other. Standard committees, technical standard committees I've been chair of, a national standard, so I've been through all sorts of things like that to be able to come to a consensus.
Have you lived in town long?
I've lived in town permanently since 2016.
Okay.
My family's been in town since 1675 continuously.
Okay, all right, we'll take that.
I guess that qualifies.
Hmm?
I guess that qualifies.
Yep, and one of my three great grandfathers was a select board person, long time ago.
Long time ago.
And that house we actually took down, and we're giving it for $1, and we're rebuilding it over on Alonzo Drive, and we'll start the project this year.
That's interesting.
Have you been following our meetings, reading
I
our
have not.
minutes?
I have not, but I have printed out everything, every set of agendas, every set of minutes, read every set of the minutes, and of course, I've highlighted all my chapters and started and read through the whole plan right there. So, yeah, so I'm trying to get familiar with it. And if I'm not, I'm not chosen, I'll be more than happy to hand it to whoever it is, so they already have that information.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Thanks for taking time and considering serving, because it can be a heavy lift. Mr. Nickerson, could you share your view of the current state of the government here in Harwich?
I would say there needs to be some changes in it. I think that the way the select board interacts with the administration needs to be looked at a little bit closer. I also feel, after reading through this in more detail, personally, I would think that the police department should be treated similarly to the fire department as far as the decision-making. The fact that the police chief has to go for approval for who he hires to the select board, or as opposed to the fire chief can make those decisions independently, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think if you hire people that are the right people in each of those higher positions, they should have the authority to make those. And if they don't do a good job, then those people are not going to stay around because somebody's going to make a decision about that.
Thank you. And what is your view of our current charter?
I think it's good. I mean, I think it needs to be worked on. There's things I've already seen, and I only read it one time, so I'm sure you all know it much better than I do. But there are changes that need to be made, obviously. Like select board certainly needs to be made, but that's pretty simple, isn't it? So yeah, I think every one of them, I don't know how you're approaching it, but I would approach it where we all come into every little section and talk about things that we would want to do or not do, and debate it and see what the consensus is on that exact section, and then move on. And then when you get finished with the whole thing, I would go back and do it all over again with the changes to see if it all meshes together so it's a smooth document.
Thank you. And finally, my last question, and thank you for bearing with my questions. You mentioned a couple things you may want to see changed. What are those particular things that you might want to see changed in the charter?
Well, like
you
I
mentioned
said,
the select board, so what in particular?
I don't really know if I have that right now, honestly, because I haven't spent the time you've spent on it. I just started to get a little bit educated on it. But like I said, certainly on the police chief. The other thing that was most bothersome to me is there's no, at least from what I could see, there's no requirements on review process for people within the town on an annual basis. And maybe I missed that, but that to me is just a simple thing, that not simple, but that is a thing that I feel needs to be done. And those things, if done properly, I mean, I've been in industry, I've worked for myself since 1999, but they can really prove value, both not for the town only, but for the person, because you can sit down and say, you really need to work on this and need to work on that. And if you're not doing that, you're not helping them grow, and you're not getting the best you can get out of them.
Thank you so much.
Most of the questions have already been answered, Bob. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for showing interest in the Charter Commission. What committees are you currently on, And as you know, we meet every Thursday night.
Right.
And we've been doing that since June, we have since June.
Yeah.
And we can continue, I guess, for the foreseeable future, at least through the end of the year and stuff. So it's a heavy commitment every Thursday, and it comes around awful quick.
No, I know, my wife brought that up at least 3 or 4 times.
So what other committees are you on that would not even say get in the way of meeting this Thursday night committee? I mean, the committees you may be on, do they meet Thursday nights also, or?
No. I'm on Brooks Academy Commission. I'm the chair of that, so that's, right now, it's kind of not a lot going on with it. We haven't met very often, and we will soon, but I'm also interacting with Sean Libby, who is acting as basically the manager of the project for Harwich on site. And so Sean knows I want to stay on top of it, because the Brooks Academy Commission actually has a level of responsibility of all that. So I was on part of the review team. I was with Duncan Berry and Sean and myself and Megan at the time, and the 4 of us went through all the process of looking at the 6 proposals. We got it down to 3 proposals. It was interesting. I was speaking earlier. Those 3 were the same. All 3 of us picked, 4 of us picked the same 3 proposals. Then we had interviews, and then we all picked the same number 1 company for that. So we went through that process, and during that, I learned obviously some more because of the details of it. I am a structural engineer, so I think that's one of the reasons I'm most interested in making sure that project goes in the right direction. I'm also on the Harwich Historic Society too, with Linda, and we are the people that are using that building. So it kind of fits to be on both the Brooks Academy, and that, so the town gets what it wants, but also so we can try to influence how well it works for the Historic Society, which my grandmother was the first president of.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Again, most of the questions have been answered already by previous people.
Thank you for being here.
Okay?
We have a regular town meeting where you sit behind me,
Mm-hmm.
and we always turn around and joke at each other.
I know.
Just fun. I'm not going to ask any specific questions, because if that was done to me, I wouldn't be sitting here at that time. So I really appreciate you answering the questions on the charter.
Okay.
One of the things that this committee is going to do is review the charter,
Mm-hmm.
make some suggestions, but after that, it has to go to the community, and
Absolutely.
the community votes.
Yep.
How could you help in educating the community to what this committee will do and produce?
Well, I think that what you started to do, and I honestly, I didn't make it to the first meeting, when you have a public meeting, but my wife was on the long-term planning committee, and they had a lot of outreach. She's the clerk of that committee. And that is what has to really be done, I think. I don't think that we wait till the end. We need to do that multiple times. Well, you need to do that multiple times to try to get people there and somehow entice them to come to those meetings and somehow advertise it so they understand how important their input is. Because once those decisions are made, let's say, and it's limited with limited input, and then it goes out, you know what's going to happen. They're all going to vote for it no matter the condition it's in. So you really want their input on ahead of time. So I would push really hard on that part of it.
Thank you.
Any questions of us?
Not at this time.
Okay. We good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going in a row. Mr. Lowney?
Good evening, Brendan Lowney, Harwich Center. I also serve on the Historic Commission and the Affordable Housing Trust.
All right.
First question, timing maybe, every Thursday. That's something I can definitely do. I took a look at my schedule. I was recently the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Larry Valentine is back on the scene, which is great, so that will free up a lot of my time. That's my first priority, and Historic meets on Wednesdays. So other than a public forum that may be happening with the trust, or if Brianna, the housing advocate, has something going on that she has planned, but I think Thursdays I should be able to meet that
Great.
requirement, so.
And have you looked at our minutes and read through the charter? And
I've been watching your meetings.
you need a life.
I know. So I've always been very interested, my background is I went to school for political science, and I'm pretty familiar with state and local government, so I'm very fascinated. When this came up, I knew there was a problem with the town, with turnover, like what's the root of the problem, and the organizational structure, the flow chart. Is there an issue there? So that kind of caught my attention. I started watching the meetings. So for me, just being more involved, and then I heard that someone left, and if no one was going to fill the seat, I have the time to do it, and I do have a passion for it, and I have watched most of your meetings. The best meeting was the October 9th meeting when the consultants come for the first time. I thought that was great because it brought all of your ideas together in a nice, clean package, and that's where you could see where you're going. So to me, that was the best meeting. Yeah, they gave the one word that stands out is the clarity in all the documents. Like, there's something not clear there, and I ran into a similar problem with the trust recently. Simple language, but yet legal opinions, and it should have been sorted out, and we stumbled for about 5 months. So that was an issue for us, and it could happen again. So, and I can see some issues with the charter as well that I've noticed. So,
Yeah, I think that overall, our committee, I call it the weasel words, but you shouldn't have a document that governs us that needs constant opinions from the attorney side. And we have had the experience in town where the same firm, you ask 3 different attorneys and you get 3 different answers. So,
it's a little interesting, yeah.
yeah, it is. And it gets very frustrating because then you don't know what you're doing
Mhm.
or what you're allowed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting.
Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Lana, for being with us tonight, and for your interest, in serving. And I told you all last week, I was surprised, Mr. Lana called me and said, I've been watching the meeting, and I guess I was sort of stunned to see someone actually, number one, watches our meetings, number two, had an interest in wanting to serve. So thank you for your interest. The same questions I asked Mr. Nickerson. You did mention, what is your view of our current charter?
I mean, to me, I think there's a big issue with the select board, and that's what really got my attention. The whole flow, who are their direct reports, back and forth, the TA, all the department heads. It just seems like a lot, and it should be a little bit simpler. I believe in a strong town manager or town administrator. I think that's a better way to do this, and let the select board sit with policy and delegate when they have to. And I think that's really a good part of it. I think in one of your meetings, you brought up where you have elected officials, and they may not have management skills. I think when you hire a town administrator, that's someone that you're vetting properly. They are a manager. They know how to talk to people. They know how to delegate. They know how to follow up, follow through, and give that pat on the back when it needs to be done, and to empower the employees. I think that's missing in the town.
Wow, you have been watching us. Is there something in particular you'd like to see changed in the charter?
I mean, I could see the issue with the select board going above and beyond. Not overstepping, but I think if I was a select board member, if I had a question, I'd like to call the finance director. And in this case, they can, because they do hire that person. And I think, I'm not so much about that. Well, the finance director, if it was taking out, how would the select board go about that? And they have a town administrator that can facilitate that and maybe control that. In this way, you're not dealing with 2 different bosses. And maybe that could be a problem where there's a big turnover. I've only been active in the last 8 years with the trust and the historic commission. But there's been a lot of turnover, and I'm new to the town. But it's surprising. That's all. It's really surprising.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I mean, you guys have been a constant. I've always seen.
Huh?
I've always seen all of you. So, but in general, maybe the employees I'm talking about, not so much the volunteers, but the employees.
John?
I really
don't have any specific questions either, Brendan, but thank you
Yep.
for attending. I mean, you've answered all of them so far.
Thank you.
Hi, Brandon.
Hey,
Always good to see you.
absolutely.
I really want you to understand that this isn't a Monday night or Thursday night meeting
Mm.
only. I'm finding that there's a lot of work to be done during the week. A lot of time reading and looking at other towns. And so that you have to keep in mind at all times. The other is, there's something that's difficult in the job we're trying to do. And a lot of people might have problems with it. Not to say there's someone here that had trouble with it, but when you are looking at it from an administrator's side or a select board side, it's a lot different than looking at it from the outside. If I were a select board member, I would want as much flexibility in the charter as possible. Why? I don't want to be curtailed. That's the nature of it. If I were TA, I'd want the right to determine my own destiny and how I managed. So I would want flexibility. So we're going, in many ways, directly opposed to what those in control that have elected officials want. And so we have to, I think, as a group, always walk that balancing act of what sounds good, what theoretically makes sense, what in political science might be the textbook answer, versus the practicality. And so we have to be very flexible. And I just want you to realize that it's not like a regulatory agency where I have the rules behind me and I need to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Here, we're creating rules for others, and those others may be the wrong rules. We have to be very careful. That's all.
No, I understand. I could see it being a really tough task. In one of your meetings, you brought up, maybe going to every 2 weeks and get
Yep.
the agenda shortened and make a priority. Where would all those other items fall to? So not to pick on the select board, that's one of many problems we're dealing with. But if you were to do that, where do all those other tasks go? And then to your first part of it, as far as the homework, I can do it. I've done it on the trust, and I've gone down that rabbit hole of, chasing bylaw to the state statute and back and forth, 20 ways to Sunday. So I get the task at hand.
Brandon, there's 7 towns out of the 13 towns on the Cape that meet twice a month.
Yeah.
So part of our task, if we're going to look at it, would be to see what is on their agendas and how do they handle it, and could that be brought here?
Yeah.
And so that's part of the task.
I think I, though, would say that how many times any board meets is not a piece of the charter.
Correct.
Yeah, I
They
agree.
meet when they meet, so let's not go down that rabbit hole too far.
Yeah.
I do have a rabbit hole, though,
Have a rabbit hole.
since you've already asked my first question. But as the conversation goes on, I think it's a good question for all of us to be thinking about. You like the idea of strong town administrator, manager, whatever the title is. All well and good, but, and I'm going to hear Richard say to me, don't go into the past, but I don't see how you can inform the future if you're not paying attention to what's happened before. So I am going to go that direction. How do you, in a town with outreach, sell the idea of an even stronger position when people have been so unhappy with the scope of power that it has had already?
Yeah, it's a good
It's a
point.
political problem,
Yeah, that's why we're trying to vet it out. I'm not saying I'm
Right.
leaning one way or the other.
because at the end of the day, we have to engage the voters and say, this is a great idea, and they're all going to say, are you out of your mind?
Correct. Well, for me, if you use the finance director as an example, I would think that the town administrator, if you have a $70 to $80 million budget, I would think the town administrator is talking to him about 5 times a day. And it seems like that's somebody who should be a direct report to the town administrator and not to the select board. That's just one example. So I could see you have almost 2 bosses, and it can be confusing.
Oh,
And maybe
no
that
argument.
causes chaos, maybe it doesn't.
That
but-
wasn't the particular one I had in mind,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I had totally agree with you on
Yeah.
that score, but you've got two camps, neither of which would really want to relinquish the power that they
No.
have. One who would like additional power, one who doesn't want to give up power, and a town that's a little gun-shy. Let's face it, we've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, whatever work product we end up with, we have to convince people that it's a good idea.
Mhm.
And it just depends on how much you think the assignment of more to one side is going to affect how the voters respond.
I think your comment in one of the meetings was guardrails, not barriers, or maybe it was you, Linda, I'm sorry, whoever
That was
said it. It's tricky what you're taking on, but based on your agenda packet, it's almost, these are all the agendas from, it's almost thicker than the charter. I think if you plug away for another 12 months, you're going to figure it all out. I really do. I think this is a really good board. You have all the right players, and if I could be part of it, great.
And we did hire a consultant to assist us in research, putting the words together, coming with ideas from other communities. And I think that that's going to be very valuable too, because we don't think we have all the answers either.
Right.
If there's somebody else out there who knows how to do it better, can word it better, has a better way of doing something, yahoo. So we'll take whatever ideas that seem to make the most sense. And I think the bottom line is what makes sense for this community. And, you know, it doesn't matter if the entire universe is doing something else. If this community doesn't want to do that, then it doesn't matter how many other people are doing it. So there is some, I think we have, we have talked a little about outreach. Once we start getting things put together, publications, columns in the Chronicle, maybe having
Yeah.
some public meetings, do some, this is where we're going, what do you think? And if they're screaming in the audience, well, that probably isn't going to fly.
Right.
So we're kind of have, that's in a couple of months, we'll really start delving into that. We have gone pretty much piece by piece, chapter 1, chapter 2, and marching through it and coming up with the concepts and the issues. So at that, so we are trying to do that. We have not voted on anything, but we do have a list of what we feel comfortable with. Come on in, ma'am.
Oh, excuse me to interrupt. I'm on my way out, thank you.
We like company.
Hey, company's fine. So we're not ready to vote at this point, say, yes, we want this in there. We're achieving mostly consensus on ideas that we would want to present to the public.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's going to a ballot, not to a town meeting.
Not go to town
So
meeting.
we'll have to do the outreach and the public forums, yeah? Which is a great idea. I think you would have to do that. Yeah.
Any other questions? Good. Questions for us?
I think I'm good. I think you're doing a great job. Like I said, I think there's all the right players involved, and if you need a ninth person, I'd like to be part of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Mr. Ed?
How you feeling?
Better than last week. I was, spent the week in the hospital last week with an infection. And was out on Friday, so been recuperating ever since, but I'm up and getting around, driving and doing some small little bits of handyman work, so.
Trying to get into even more trouble.
Huh?
And trying to get into even more
Oh, yes.
Ed McManus, same questions. Have you been looking at our minutes? Have you read the charter? Although that's, I'm sure you have. But minutes, have you been following this?
I've been, well, first off, have I read the charter? Well, yes, I've sort of lived with the charter for 15 years as a member of the select board. I've been, paying attention to a few articles in the newspaper on the charter committee. I haven't really read all the minutes. I've looked at a few, but it's, I've been talking to folks who have been watching watching the tapes, and at times, and I have a general idea of what you've been discussing since you've started. And having, like I said, lived with the charter, I have a pretty good idea of what a lot of those topics are that you're talking about, because there are some of the same issues that I probably scratched my head over. So, yeah.
Richard?
Again, thank you for coming tonight and your interest in serving the town. I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked the last two gentlemen.
Sure.
I know it's repetitive, and I apologize, but first and foremost, what is your view of the current state of the government in this community?
Well, it's been troubled, I think, for some time. There've been a lot of acrimony, and I think a lot of the acrimony has been caused by a number of people being unclear of the roles they should be performing, and in their either role as either a select board member or I think I had some issues with how the performance of the past town administrator. Just say that rather than getting to specifics. I liked him as an individual. We had great talks about Democratic Party politics, but issues on decisions and the way he administered the town always didn't strike me as right. But that's sort of my general view of the way the town is, and I think, I guess, it isn't that that the charter was particularly wrong, although there are some issues that I know that are in there that need to be fleshed out.
That segues right to my next question then. And you sat on the board for many, many years as a member of the select board.
Yeah.
So what is your view of the charter?
Well,
How do you view it, having worked with it for 15 years?
There were a number of areas where, over the years while I was serving, that I've read the section of the charter and said, this is very clear, straightforward language, and somebody would disagree with it and quite honestly run off and get an attorney to give an opinion. Now, in many cases, that member of the Board of Selectmen was supported by a majority, two others, and they got their way. In other cases, if I could round up two people, we'd, basically tell the attorney, it's your opinion, but that doesn't make it law. Our opinion as the people who are supposed to be operating this town are different than that. So to the extent that in those areas the language can be made more specific and not so given to interpretation, because attorneys can always come up with a different opinion. I mean, that's why you hire them. But there's that. There's also some areas where the language has been ambiguous and open and readily open to interpretation, which has always been problematic. It doesn't say should, or it says, it doesn't say shall, it says shall, should, and it gets very confusing exactly what was intended. And there's a lot of issues like that I think need to be cleaned up. For the most part, the rest of the sort of structural elements, I think, are all covered, that need to be covered to operate the town government. One of the things, you know, the segregation between the legislative branch being town meeting, the executive branch theoretically being the select board, but you have an executive group, the Board of Selectmen, which are only an executive if they're all acting together or with a majority vote. When one of them goes off and tries to play as executive on his own, that's the source of problems. And then you have an operating executive who is the administration of the town. And that dynamic between the executive committee and the executive officer is always an interesting one. The select board needs to, you know, in empowering that person with the executive authority, needs to give that person rein to do and use his experience and knowledge to do the best he can for the town. But on occasion, he'll come forward with something that doesn't feel right to the select board. It doesn't feel right because of the history of the town or the way we behave in town, or it isn't a project that we want to undertake. And there's really no problem. I should foresee there shouldn't be any problem in that the executive body saying, no, we're gonna, that's not the way we want to go. Either come back at us with something different, or come back with a different take on it, or drop that project altogether because it's just not we don't feel it's in the interest of town. And those, you know, but those are the sort of the higher level decisions. When I was a select board member, it always drove me crazy that we spent so much time reviewing each and every liquor license permit and automobile junk permit, you know, we spend a lot of time at select board meetings going through the approval of each and every one. I had pushed and was somewhat successful for a while to do those in sort of collective votes on a consent calendar, so they didn't take up so much of the time that at select board meetings that should be used for sort of the bigger picture discussions that we need on, you know, all the things that are facing us, coastal problems, septic, you know, clean water problems, housing, all of those things should take up most of our time at those meetings rather than the housekeeping, which is what we have staff for. So.
Thank you, Mr. McManus.
John?
We've spent a fair amount of time. Bear in mind, we have not made any votes or decisions on it at all yet. On chapters 3 and 4, which is the select board and the town administrator roles in town. And you've heard it proposed that we're making the select board more of a policy-making board and giving the TA a strong, I guess the technical term is strong. We have a strong fire chief in town. We do not have a strong police chief. We're talking on that. But making the TA, or town manager, or whatever the vernacular is, a strong TA. What's your thoughts on that? Again, we haven't voted on it. We've discussed it a lot. And but you as a former selectman for 15 years, I guess. I mean, what would be your opinion on that topic?
Well, in Massachusetts, there's sort of two, well, actually three, but for our purposes, two models that, in terms of town management. One is having a town administrator, and the other one having a town manager. And there's an implication between the difference. A town manager typically literally appoints all employees and essentially, with very few exceptions, all special employees, and by special employees, I mean members of committees. The town manager in Chatham appoints the planning board. The town manager in Dennis appoints the Park and Rec Commission, or whatever their recreation commission is. A town administrator typically doesn't do that. The appointments to run committees are generally done by the select board, if you have a town administrator, and that's, you know, that's a very different relationship between the select board and the folks in town. I mentioned in town manager with some exception, typically the town, even in a town manager town, the appointment of the finance committee, appointment of certain special appointees of the town is given to the moderator. You know, the member representative to the Cape Cod Regional Tech School Board, and a variety of other things. The Caleb Chase Fund directors done by the town manager, the town moderator. And that's also similarly true with the town administrative form of government. The third form of government that's outlined in Massachusetts law is what's called an executive secretary, and it's typically reserved for towns that still have only 3 select board members. And the executive secretary is basically comes down to the person who does all the paperwork for the select board members. But sort of lost track on where your question was there.
Your opinion on a strong TA, and you kind of mentioned that.
Well, personally, I think you can, in a contract with a TA, set them with certain responsibilities that would make them have a stronger role in town, or not, depending on how you want that contract to read. Personally, I think if you went to a town manager, it significantly would change how the town operates. It becomes, I think, more of a corporate structure with a chief executive officer, and I'm not sure that would be a change that would be too big for the town to accept.
Fine, thank you. You're correct. We do have a chart. We did have a chart of all the towns.
Yeah.
Of who appoints what.
Yeah.
And Harwich is by far the most one that with a select board
Yeah.
does most of the appointing.
Yeah.
Luke?
How you doing, Ed?
Good.
I really want to thank you for being here. I feel like I'm a student in a college class. Since you know so much, I'm going to ask you a question that's direct.
Okay.
And relates to the charter of the town. If we take a look at our planning board, right now, it's a good board. But what if we were to change it? What would your opinion be if, let's say, 2 of the members were elected, 2 of the members were appointed by the Board of Selectmen, as an example, and 2 by the moderator? I know it's only 6, but
Yeah.
you get the general idea.
Yeah.
How would you feel about a system like that? Would it be beneficial or would it hurt?
Well, I think you'd, by having the appointments come from different places, obviously, the moderator views his role in town in a different way than obviously select board members do. His role is to, moderate the town, make sure everybody has their say equally with everybody else, and that all views are brought forward. And I think our current moderator, in terms of appointing the Finance Committee over the years, has done that quite well. And, having 2 or maybe 3 members appointed by the Select Board gives the members who were elected and ran on sort of specific issues to bring that point of view forward in the creation of the planning board. And the third group, you said, by the Finance Committee, obviously, a lot of the decisions of the planning board have significant impact on town revenues by what types of development does or doesn't get approved. And, which is probably not a bad thing given our financial future. It's getting tighter and tighter, in my view. And I think in our decisions, the town needs to take into the revenue results of their decision more and more than we have been.
So you would consider a change to be positive or negative?
It could be positive, but, like I said, like I've said to a number of people that, it's, if town's not running right, it's not always necessarily that the structure is wrong. You just may have the wrong group of people in for a while, and it takes time to work those folks through. So.
I think that's true, Ed, because I don't think that we want to put something in place or propose something that is based on past personalities.
Yeah.
Because no matter how many rules you have or how clear the charter is, it is still being executed by a human being.
Yep.
And sometimes that creates their own issues.
Yep.
Sandy?
Just picking up on your comment about what the town is willing to accept at this point.
Yeah.
And obviously, people will vote based on past experience. Do you think at this point that this town would be ready to go to the ultimate strong town manager form at this point? Because that's one of the critical decisions I think we have to make. And there are a lot of other things that in the long run I think will be equally as important in terms of how certain functionalities are arranged in this when we get to it. And I'd hate to lose based on that.
Yeah.
And there's so much else that I think we need to tighten up and clarify in this document.
Personally, my general feeling is I think going to a town manager form would be one of the harder sells that you'd have to make and try and make. A lot of folks, think of town as friendly and folksy, and part of that friendly and folksy business is that there's somebody at town hall that's an administrator, not the boss.
Well, there's still a significant number of people in this town who would be very happy to go back to 3 full-time selectmen, which I would be fine with, except I fail to see how it functions under the open meeting law.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You look at the
Yeah.
county commissioners and,
Yeah. How do you actually arrange your day?
being a member of a 5-member board, it's always been nice to be able to, if you run into somebody and you've come up with, you talk to somebody in another town and they've given you an idea and you want to pass it on to somebody and see if they think it's crazy or not, and you can't, and with a three-member board, you can't do that except in open session, whereas, you know, with a five-member, if you run into another select board member, you can say, listen, I heard about this, and they can look at you and say, are you crazy? You know, or, yeah, why don't you bring that forward, you know? But you can't get that sort of feedback. Yeah.
I hear you. We could always have 3 full-time select board, and they could have their complete open dooring, they could have all their conversations, and the public would have to be able to come and go.
Yeah, yeah.
And that would be crazy.
Well,
Question.
And for the 3 candidates that are here tonight, and Sandy makes some good points about the difficulty of going to a strong TA. We have a charter, and I think you made a point tonight, Mr. McManus, is that sometimes it's the people. It's not the charter.
I know
Yeah.
that one.
I'm sorry. Linda made the point. I apologize. But the fact is that when we have a charter, people have to follow the charter.
yeah,
And you know, I know Sandy has been wonderful about reminding us about guardrails. And in that charter somewhere, compliance. And that whoever is involved at the executive level has to do their job.
mhm,
And if something's not working in the charter, then it takes the people who are in those seats, who are sitting up here every Monday night, to make those changes that are necessary and to do their jobs.
yeah,
Thank you.
well, yeah. It's,
Any final comments, Ed?
well, that's what you said, you
Do
know,
you have any questions? I will ask her.
another, you know, a set of rules aren't any good if nobody follows them, and so having some way of raising those issues when somebody is running off the road needs to somehow be incorporated.
We have been talking, we have nibbled around the edges of some kind of compliance function.
Yeah.
And that will be probably a meeting all by itself as to
Yeah.
how to do that
Yeah.
and how that would function. Because if anything, it really does, there are people who are doing this.
Mhm.
Judith,
Apologies?
did you have a good time driving from Boston?
Oh, no, I drove from Augusta, Maine.
Oh, my
gosh.
Yes, yes, yes. Just the rain followed me, so. Yeah, a lot of accidents. So apologies for being late. I was curious about the compliance.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, different towns have done it differently. There's charter enforcement commissions in some towns. Not sure exactly how that works. One town I'm familiar with that has one, it tends to lead to a lot of inter-town fights over issues. I'm not sure it's been successful, really, but I don't really have any other specific ways of specific suggestions on how you would come up with that enforcement topic, function. But it's definitely something that needs to happen. It's, it's one of the things that the local plan committee, we've been always, we're doing this plan and it's got lots of nice things in it. But if you look at plans that we've done in the past, most of the time they just get put on the shelf and aren't taken out, and nobody takes them out and looks and says, oh, we haven't even started on that, and to put in some way to make sure that we're staying on track.
Any other questions? No.
So I guess the one question you asked the other two guys, not me, is if Thursdays work for me. Yeah, they do, except I'm assuming that we're all not going to be meeting here on Thanksgiving, Christmas, or New Year's.
But you'll be all by yourself.
So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for
All
coming.
right, take care.
Now, Ed was the last one to speak. Did either Brendan or Bob have any other comments they'd like to make, having heard some of the other questions and discussions?
I do have one question.
Microphone, please.
I'll ask Bob if he has anything additional.
This might have been the question at the end of my interview that I would like to ask. We're in the process of hiring a town administrator, so my question would be if this were to change, or maybe you went to a strong or a weaker, how do you see that playing out? That would be a concern because they're hiring under today's standards. And in a year from now, we're going to have someone, would their role completely change? Would they be the right person, the right fit? And the other comment is, I think it is all about people and having the right person in place. The charter probably works fine if you have all the right people who can manage. But anyways, that was a question I would have, after hearing everything.
Go ahead.
The search committee, the consultant, is trying to gather questions from the members, of which I am one. And he has apparently got a number of names. I would say that we probably will have a new town administrator in place within maybe the next few months.
Oh, wow.
So we'll, at least that's what I'm hoping, is that we get somebody in place permanently within the next few months so that we have time to have that conversation with this new person,
Good.
which may, in fact, turn everybody's heads around. It's hard to know.
And that
We don't know
potential,
who we're going to get or what the philosophy will be, but
right.
hopefully it'll be somebody who, is a good fit and
Great.
has some clear ideas of how things should be handled.
And maybe that select board meeting, the joint meeting you're looking to do might shed some light on, their
Yes, we have,
participation.
it's not so much a joint meeting as we have invited them as a committee to
Yeah.
come and talk to us.
Yeah.
Linda?
Um, I don't think there's an appetite in the community to have or in this group, to have a weaker role as town administrator.
Right.
I think if it does anything, it will probably become a little stronger. And whether you call it town administrator or town manager, it's all in the job description.
Correct.
So we could call it chief dog catcher, but it's the job description, the authorities and the responsibilities. So we don't get hung up on strong town administrator, strong town manager, blah, blah, blah. It's all in the job description.
Agreed.
So we're trying not to get hung up on the title.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just wanted to.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to guess that all of those candidates know that this committee, that this is in process, so, yeah, anybody I'm sure that's applying for that job is
Aware.
cognizant that.
One would hope, because if they're not, it means they're not looking at the town and they're not doing research.
Linda, I'm going to frankly counter my colleague
Which one?
who is on the town administrator search committee to make them aware that we're in the midst of a charter commission. And I hope that's brought to every candidate for town administrator's attention of what is happening, and that they do take a look at some of the work that we've done to date.
Well, I would hope that anybody thinking about applying for that job will have done their due diligence town-wide. Maybe even spend some time at a lunch counter somewhere. That's what they mostly do. They reconnoiter.
Hopefully they will, because if they're not doing their homework, I don't think we want them. Would kind of be my opinion.
Great, thanks for answering that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Bob, anything?
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I'm in your court or not, but I think you need to have a very strong leader. And there's another reason for it. Select board members come and go, and their change the dimensional, direction of the town in different ways. But if you have a really good, I'll call them town manager, but I don't care what you call them, that solidifies the direction and doesn't have so much hesitation on which way we go, left or right and so forth. You have a really strong, let's say, select board chair, all of a sudden you can have a certain direction, and then all of a sudden one that's not as strong. So if I was on this committee, I would be pushing very hard for somebody that has more control, and the board was to be able to feed into them, obviously have their own roles, but to take away some of these discussions that really shouldn't happen, this person, in my opinion, should have much more control of the town. That's my 2 cents.
Span of authority.
And, obviously, you have to have authority if you don't have control.
Thank you.
Okay. One last comment, Ed, and then we're...
One last comment. Some of the comments you made with Brendan's question, it's actually, because we're governed by Massachusetts general laws, and some of the responsibilities and prerogatives of town officials are spelled out in that, and it is important, the title that people have. There are things that, if you want to change that, then it becomes a separate process of altering a section of Massachusetts general law, with the strong fire chief and weak police chief. Those are things that are in Massachusetts general law. If we wanted to change it, there may be all the goodness in the world to do that, but it becomes then adopting a separate section of
Yes, it
general
does.
law to change some of
I
that.
think my comments on not getting caught up in what you title the
Yeah.
person is so that we don't get hung up on a title
Yeah,
and we forget about the conversation of span of authority and
Okay, yeah.
responsibility. Because again, whatever you call it, it's the span of authority, the span of responsibility. So I think what we're trying to do is get to that end of it as opposed to just toss out, we need a strong town manager, we need a strong town administrator. What does that mean?
yeah.
So we're just, I think that's my comment back,
Good.
because we're trying not to get
Yeah.
caught up in titles.
As far as Massachusetts general law, if you can find for me
The citation.
passage of Massachusetts general law that defines either one of those positions, or do a Google search globally to find anybody who can define it. Most of the, I think even KP Law has a dissertation that the title is basically irrelevant. It's how you structure it. And one of the beauties of the Charter Commission is there are things we can do that are not exactly in line with Massachusetts law, as long as we're not defying the Massachusetts Constitution.
Mhm. Yep.
Charter Home Rule says, yeah, these are the things that are out there, but you can do things differently.
Yep.
So, but I don't think the names of those two positions are codified anywhere.
Having talked to the Attorney General and Secretary of State offices, they could not quote
Yep.
Section 6, Paragraph 2, AB 462,
Mhm.
because it isn't in there.
Yeah.
So it is not codified in Mass General Law, a definition of those two. So if you have a citation, that'd be great, because they couldn't tell me one and I couldn't find one.
No, I've never found an a definition of it, but as you read through,
General
And-
usage
and
maybe, but
Maybe
not,
general usage, but
Yeah.
there is no
Um,
definition that
which,
Secretary of State or AG
yeah,
can point to that says this is the definition of a town administrator and this is the definition of a town manager.
well, I think we even put that question to the consultant at one point, didn't
And
we?
he said no.
Yeah, he said, well, yeah, so it's up to us to define it.
Okay,
there are,
good enough.
there are places where they refer to a town manager, and I know in other towns, it has led to lawsuits over select people attempting to the select people and the town manager getting to fight over who's got control. I
Okay,
mean,
that's
it's
That's a different
yeah,
topic, completely
But,
different
yeah,
topic than
It
the
does,
definition of the two roles.
but it does have,
And we're getting off topic here.
I know, it
I'm
just,
not going to do that. I keep
Okay.
telling them, focus.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. We're not going to make a vote tonight. No, because it's not on the agenda, number one. And so we will do the vote next week. We can all have a chance to
Ruminate?
to think about what we heard and think about what direction we want to go. Judith, I would suggest that you watch this meeting. And I think,
And for the record, it was supposed to be here at 5, so you know.
I know because you called me. Okay, thank you very much for your interest. We really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Bob.
Thank you.
Brendan, Ed. And that'll also give Herb and Paul a chance to review the...
Yep.
Yes, and it'll give Herb and Paul a chance to review the tapes as
Yeah,
well.
I think that's prudent.
So we will have a vote next week on a choice. And I will contact both Herb and Paul and make sure that they watch the tape, so they get the flavor and the conversation. Is that good? Okay. Well, it's 7:38. We were supposed to talk about Chapter 6, elected town officials and town agencies, and Chapter 8, election and recall. Since it's already at 7:30, would we like to do election and recall for Chapter 8 and move Chapter 6 to next week? Because I think that's going to be a longer discussion.
Sounds like a good plan.
Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chapter 8 is election and recall.
C21.
Yes, page C21 in the charter. So, comments?
I have one comment, if I may.
Certainly.
I would really like to see the requirement for the percentage of signatures for a recall petition reduced. Having just gone through the process of collecting, and the time frame perhaps expanded a little bit, having just gone through the exercise, mostly Lou, of collecting signatures for a charter that required 15%. It's, to go for 20 is probably next to impossible. And while it shouldn't be easy, it shouldn't be so onerous that it's almost impossible to accomplish if you ever want to. And I would like to see us, I would say, drop down to perhaps 10% on that, and possibly open up the time frame a little bit for gathering.
This is section 8-5-1,
Yeah.
page C22. It is the second paragraph
Yep.
under
Yeah.
that, section 5. So
And
it
it
calls
gives,
for 20% and 14 days.
yeah, we had 15%, and we didn't have any time limit on it.
What is the current number of voters in town? Registered voters.
10,000 and change.
Something like 10,000 and change.
So you're looking at, yeah, we had to gather 1,800 signatures for the commission, and it took months. The places where you can go to gather signatures these days are much more limited than they used to be, way more limited. And to be able to do 20% of the voters in 14 days is basically, you might as well take the whole section out.
No, I agree. I think there's some compromise, space
Yeah.
for compromise there.
Yeah,
And it shouldn't be easy either.
no,
No,
not saying it should
easy.
be.
But I think if, time-wise, we could expand some of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I may not be good with 10, but maybe 15%, I could give consideration to. I think 20 is onerous. And I think in 14 days, it truly is almost impossible. And if we get to a point at any time in this community that there's an overriding feeling that there needs to be a recall, then it should have an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm open, I have nothing preconceived, but
Yeah.
I'm open to a discussion.
Well, then, toss a number out. Sandy has
Well,
tossed.
Well, let's just start as a baseline of either 10 or 15%, and I would say the town should have, somebody should have at least a month to
Hold on.
gather signatures.
Can I say something?
Yes, you
Yeah.
can, when I recognize
Okay,
you.
rather, I can't talk numbers right now, only because I don't have a red scarf on. And going out and getting all these signatures is not easy.
It is not.
But so far, we've discussed that the select boards, one of their main roles might be to hire and fire the town administrator. That means that 5 individuals can get rid of somebody if they're not doing their job. Well, shouldn't the same logic then occur in terms of the voters towards the select board? And what would it do? And again, this is all discussion. I just can't say 10%. I have to think about this. What does it do if you're making it a bit easier for the townspeople to say, this person is stepping over the line as far as the community is concerned, and we want to vote on it?
So
It doesn't mean that they're voted out of office. It means that there's a referendum by the town, really, that says, you better straighten out.
No, that's not.
I
that's
understand.
not what this is.
Well,
This is recalling an elected official.
don't we have to vote if you have the recall?
You do, but first, we're talking specifically collecting 20% of the
And I'm-
registered votes and 14 days to do it.
And I'm
We're not talking about the ballot, because once you collect the signatures, it goes on a
Right,
ballot.
but all that flows. You just can't look at the one without looking what the end result will be. So I would say, why not 500?
Lou, I understand where you're coming from, and my whole premise has been accountability.
Right.
And Paul's has been, well, the electorate will speak.
That's right.
They don't, a lot of times. And because, to be honest with you, and one of the candidates tonight made a point about, well, the town administrator is a constant, and select members, no, we don't. We have career politicians
Yes, we do.
that have been here for 10, 15, 20-plus years. No disrespect. So I think my concern is going so low that you have a very vocal minority who disagree with a person or a couple of people, and that
Or
it becomes
everything.
so low that I don't want to see recalls happening every year over issues. I would rather see it a reasonable number. I think the biggest thing is more the time frame. 14 days is just, I think,
Impossible.
unreasonable.
That's ridiculous.
That's
Unreasonable.
insane.
It's impossible.
And whatever number it may be, 500, 1,000, again, it shouldn't be easy enough that a group of people from one neighborhood are upset that they didn't get their beach stairs, so they want to recall a select board member. I don't think that's appropriate. There are going to be differences, people are going to disagree with decisions that are made, but I don't want it getting to a point where I disagreed with the decision that a select board made, I want to recall them. If people are not doing their job, and we have issues with the town administrator, and the board keeps approving that town administrator and giving them passing grades and renewing a contract when they know there's a bad town administrator, that is a reason that I would want to see someone recalled.
I can understand, and I understand the lower number. And again, I don't have a position on this at this point, but I want to look at it because I think
Sure.
it's an important point.
Sure.
I still, as the person getting the signature, as that group that's upset, has to go to the dump or has to go to Shaw's and say, I'd like you to sign this petition because we want to recall so-and-so.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Well, it's not going to be, I understand. Well, the person with the pen that's got to sign their name, if he's not from that group that's upset, isn't going to sign it.
But I think,
They'll say, I'm busy, I'll get you on the way out, and go out the other door.
but that happens.
Yeah.
But again,
It needs to be a solid number,
It
so
needs-
that it
yes.
requires some work and some thought before you engage on it. I mean, I thought about doing the Charter Commission for 4 years, but I knew how difficult it was going to be. So I didn't, until it really kind of hit critical mass. And I think this is the way this should operate also.
I think it should too. So I think we're in agreement that there should be a reasonable level of difficulty, degree of difficulty as they jump off the bridge and make their three-pike turn. and the days need to be more. But I mean, part of not wanting to, Lou, since this was going to be on tonight's agenda, I would have thought you would have thought about some of this stuff.
Yes,
You
Mother.
may have a prob-
Wow, Lou.
Yeah, I did, but I forgot. Thank you, Judy.
Don't recall.
Lord, one lies, the other swears by him.
Madam Chair, taking shots already?
Yes.
Yeah, it's still early.
The idea of thinking through it is to think through with a group of individuals.
But you're still,
That doesn't necessarily mean that I agree that 500 is the number. It should be a lower number. But it does bring out the discussion on how important this is. And for all of us to walk through the steps that says what is it and what it should be. So it's not that I didn't think about it, because I did.
agreed. However, Sandy brought up something and threw something on the table to lowering the 20% to 10% in at least a month. And I
I'd even
think,
say,
And I'm not,
I
and I'm
think,
not- I'm not even sure a month is long.
I
but
think
it's-
$10 too much, or is
six-
it $5?
I think 60 days is probably reasonable,
Lou,
although it,
Madam Chair, if I can through you.
certainly.
well, you have to go through her.
Yeah, because I can't see you.
Right here.
How long did it take you to get those signatures?
It took me a year.
Took a year.
Took a year.
Okay. And you were
There
pretty
was-
consistent.
There
you know.
was
And
no,
I-
there
yeah.
was no deadline.
Yeah. I haven't seen him at the dump since.
I suppose, I think if there had been a deadline, we probably would have been a little more urgent about it.
Okay, so realistically,
50 signatures a day, if you're out working,
Yeah.
is what the average person is going to get. If you really have it down to an art, you could go to 75 or 100 on certain days.
so if we looked at 60 days, 2 months, that seems to be a reasonable period of time to get, whether it's 500, 1,000, 1,500 signatures, whatever it might be. Okay? Can we all agree on a period of 60 days? Is that something reasonable?
I think so.
Could that be a consensus start of this conversation? John?
If we went to 60 days, I'd like to discuss the amount of signatures, too.
Yeah.
I'd hate
Oh,
to-
absolutely, we have to.
You know, I'd hate to say 60, okay, and then we lower the signatures to 500. I don't agree
Well,
that
it's
way.
No,
not, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
So-
the 500 is, that.
60 days seems, you know, pretty high. I think if anyone's going to recall someone, it's going to have to be a pretty egregious act.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just because he wouldn't let me put my Christmas tree ornaments up. I want to recall the
You didn't do my
selectmen.
driveway.
It's going to be a pretty egregious act, so 60 days, I think, is a little too long, maybe.
Well,
The
I
only
think,
reason, the only reason I think 60, if something were to occur in the middle of the winter, we have a large population that goes south. They're still residents, but they go south in the winter for a month, 2
true.
months, 3 months.
Yeah.
So if something were to come up and it was egregious in December or January, you would have to have that, based on, you know, an experience that Lou had and others have had trying to get signatures. I feel very comfortable with 60 days. I think it's reasonable. It's, 2 weeks is just not possible.
Oh, yeah.
But I think commensurate with that is the number of signatures you need to get in the
Right.
60 days.
Yeah.
Judith?
Follow-up question to John Schumer. So if it was 60 days to get 500 signatures, but Lou was pushing and he got the 500 signatures in 30 days, could that expedite?
Oh, yeah, of course you can.
Oh, sure.
You can go no longer than 60
Wait,
days.
okay.
You
Yeah.
cannot go low.
but it's not going to be 500 signatures.
Yeah.
It's got to be a bigger number.
Yeah.
I'd say, you know, 10% is kind of where I would like to see it, but 15% isn't terrible either. It just, the 20% in 14 days is, it's like you
No.
might as well just trash the whole section.
I agree with John that if somebody is going, whatever the percentage is, 10, 15, whatever, that it's going, if somebody is that much in arms, it's going to have been a really hellacious, awful thing that has happened, and that a huge chunk of the town is up in arms.
Right.
And is really upset. And therefore, getting something like 10% or 15%, we have about 10,000 registered voters, that's 1,500 signatures.
And just one point I think that's important. The next sentence. The town clerk has 7 days to certify. And if you're looking, I don't care if it's 20%, that's a lot of signatures. Even 15% is a lot of signatures to try to certify in 7 days, because this is very time-specific. So, you know, with that in mind, I could, you know, reconsider 10%. Because if you're going to do this, if you're going to have a recall election, you have to go through the process. And to overwhelm a town clerk, if it were to happen in April or May, it'd be almost impossible.
Or during a presidential
Correct.
cycle.
No,
Yeah.
correct. So I think I can be convinced that we can go, pick a number. 10% is, what's that final number of 10%, Sandy?
About 15.
Well, if we have 10,000, that's about 1,000.
Yeah.
That still is a hike.
What's egregious? Why would, I guess here's where I'm having difficulty. Why would someone want to have someone recalled?
There are lots of reasons why
Actually-
people are recalled.
Yeah, that's,
Somebody
answer?
somebody
Yes.
has created fraud.
Can I-
Somebody has stolen from the town.
then it's one vote, that's all I need to get rid of him if he's created fraud.
That's not true.
Not true.
Can
Not
I-
true.
Can I say something?
Certainly.
This just came up tonight. I mentioned it to Linda earlier. On the evening news, tonight's evening news, there was an incident in Uxbridge of a selectman posting a video. He didn't create the video, but he posted a video in a disparaging way to a former president of the United States. And there was such an uproar in town, they actually said, we have a procedure in our town charter to recall this gentleman. So that made the evening news. Uxbridge is at the forefront right now. And that's, you have to interpret that, how egregious that is means, but that's a perfectly good example. It just happened today in Uxbridge, so the people will define what's an egregious act.
Correct.
And so, watch the evening news tonight at 11, it'll probably be on there.
And if not enough people agree that it's an egregious act, you're not going to get your
Right.
1,000 or 1,500 signatures,
There you
and
go.
the whole thing blows over and goes away. Or maybe just the mere threat of it is enough to straighten somebody out.
Because there is no requirement for someone that I've ever heard of that you've done something that people consider egregious. You do not have to resign your position.
Mhm.
Nothing says you have to. We went through that in Boston, with the woman who was, with the feds for taking bribes.
Mhm.
City council, I think she was one of the city councilors. Well, nothing could force you to resign. In the same way that on recusal, nobody forces you to recuse of a decision that you feel you should or should not recuse yourself from a particular vote. So, rather than get caught up in
I'm not going to.
what would be considered egregious enough so somebody would do this, we're laying out the process that if it
Understand.
happens.
We could also open up the time for the town clerk a little bit, but I know when we had the charter petition going in, that petitions could be filed as they were collected too, and certified.
And the town clerk has the authority to hire extra staff.
Yeah.
7 days is still very difficult. And
Yeah.
you know because you're a registrar as well, is that correct?
Who, me?
Yes.
No.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
I
thought
used to
you-
work at the polls.
I'm the clerk, I'll know.
So my question is, I don't know if that 7 days is defined by Mass General Law or if it is just within our charter.
I would tend to think it's something that we can do within our charter, but that would be a question
Because
certainly to
if
ask.
that were the case, again, we bring up if it's a presidential election occurring, and if people get signatures, this has to be done. There's no, leeway there. So I think if we could, if it is legal under Mass General Law, to expand that time frame for the clerk, pick a number, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Emily might know the answer to that
We could-
question.
Yeah,
We could, that would be
yeah.
one open question is the 7 days in state law? That's a question.
Well, and not only that,
We could debate that for hours.
no, I don't want to
That should
say.
be a yes or no.
But the rest of that section,
Yes. So
those dates, they seem very specific.
they are. They're
64 days, 90
extremely-
days, 100
they're
days.
extremely specific.
So I just want to know if all of that is under Mass General Law, or if that is under our authority to make suggested changes.
Are these dates in Mass General Law? That's a question. Because, yes, when you start going
Well, here's-
64 days,
Here's an interesting point which may answer in a way the question, because the last line of that paragraph is all procedures for voting upon the recall question and filling any vacancy caused by recall
Mass
of
General
an
Law.
officer shall be in a manner provided by Mass General Law. So this is not the rest of it is not necessarily embedded in the law as a must-do, but it references, the rest of this is in Mass General Law.
Right, I just want to, again, make sure, before we start trying to make suggestions, that it is true, and Emily can answer that very easily for us.
One
I think
one
she
of the interesting points of a commission is that the only towns that can have recall are those that have a charter.
Isn't that interesting? You don't have a charter, you can't have a recall.
So,
Well, thank you, Sandy, for putting this together.
But I would say that going, leaving 852, the 7 days, the 64 days, the 90 days, that's a question that we should send to our consultants and say, where is this in Mass General Law?
right. And-
Are these cast in concrete, or did somebody come up with these?
Correct.
64 is way too specific.
Right, yeah, I know, that's why I question that. The other thing is, in your note, to bring up to for discussion again, we do believe that the town clerk should have some additional time
Right.
to certify those names.
Separate from where are these cast in concrete somewhere.
Correct.
Even if the 7 days is, we're going to, you can make it stricter, but you can't make it looser in state law.
Yeah,
Right.
and, obviously,
So I think
I would want
that's
to give
the
her,
question.
right, I would want to give her some leeway if it were possible, or the town clerk
Just
leeway.
Just one more thing to pay attention to is 854, where it says that talking about candidates that go on the same ballot as a recall
Recall, yeah.
question,
Yeah.
at least 25% of the registered voters must vote in that election
Okay,
in order for it to be valid. But it's just another part of the question, that's all.
No, I want to stick with the 852.
Yep.
So I'll ask the consultant to give us some information on that.
No, and I agree with Cindy, though, that, I would ask about that as well.
Well, I'm trying to stay one at a time and
Yeah,
not
you've got
go
it.
all over.
Yeah, I think you've got that covered.
So on 854,
Yeah.
this 25% question.
And again, I apologize, pardon my ignorance. What have been our recent elections, the turnout?
We haven't been 25%.
No, we haven't come close, I
I
don't
mean,
think.
we wouldn't even be able to do this.
Which
Right.
is why this makes, they make it difficult. It is made difficult on purpose. I don't know whether these numbers were the brainchild of previous charter commissions. I don't remember, specifically on the 87. I wasn't involved in the rewrite in 2016 at all. So it wouldn't be hard to look it up in the Mass General Laws and see, but as I say, there are many things that we can do that aren't specifically outlined or are different from Mass General Laws.
Lou, what are you
Yeah, I'm-
thinking?
I'm trying to work through this, and I'm having a real hard time,
Why?
because I'm trying to think in practicalities. How difficult is it right now, in the last 10 years, would we have recalled, if we had even lesser stringent rules, any select board member?
I can think of a couple.
I can't think of getting signatures for a couple. That's my problem.
Well,
And so I'm looking at it from two reasons, theoretical and also practical. And from a theoretical perspective, there's things that happen when you have fear of recall. And when recall is put into motion, action occurs, change occurs. To actually do it is difficult. To go out there, a lot of people had problems, let's say, with an administrator in a town that they didn't like. And trying to go out and get 1,000 people, even in a highly disliked person, would be an uphill challenge.
well, the administrator would never be a subject of
And
recall.
I'm using that as an example of saying how difficult it is to get
It's
recalls
supposed to be
done.
And it's
difficult.
supposed to be
And I
difficult.
want it to be difficult, but I also want it to be possible. There's a
That's-
difference
I
between...
think that's why we're talking about 20% versus a smaller percentage. Because the 20% is very, very hard.
It's impossible.
So, well, never say impossible. Somebody with the gumption
Impossible.
to do
You have to
it.
get enough people out knocking on doors, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is supposed to be hard, because you don't want, again,
Capricious
they wouldn't
use.
let me put my Christmas tree lights up, so I'm going to get 500 people to sign a petition, and we're going to have a recall. You don't want that. John stated, you don't want it to be the
Yeah,
capricious part.
Let's stop there. There's where I'm having my difficulty. 500 people have to be convinced that you're correct in having this people recalled. It's just not getting signatures.
Well, but it needs to be egregious enough so that the town in general is kind of outraged
Right.
about it.
But it's not convince people. It doesn't say here in the charter or Mass General Law, you have to convince a bunch of people, several people, that this is egregious enough. It says, whatever the reason you're having a recall, you have to have X percentage of signatures. They're not going to talk about what is, I don't think in the charter you should say, to me personally, that it has to be egregious and you can go out and connect your signatures.
we're good.
It's the recall process, this is the process, not the rationale for why you would want to have a recall, but the process to recall.
But if you don't have a rationale, you can't have a process.
But that's the
All
point.
you have is a process that makes no sense.
Process makes
Oh,
sense.
no, it does make sense.
It does?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to-
Listen,
If-
there are crimes that, some people commit when they're in office, and then there are, let's say, actions that walk a fine line that may not fit with the community. But it's really, I think, something like this is more in place for those that are,
Over the line.
go over the line and clearly, are perhaps accused of committing a crime, and there's a lot of evidence, or, it gives the voters
It's
a way to.
It's an option you
But I'm
want, but
agreeing.
hope you never have to use.
I guess I'm agreeing with everything you said. And if someone has committed a crime or is that far over, I want it to make it easy if that's the case.
No.
That's the
No.
theoretical standing where I'm at.
That's,
No, because at the
No.
end of the day, we are a town meeting town, and that means that everyone in this town needs to engage, and if you want to raise an issue like that, yeah, you have to fill out and work, I mean, it's gotta be a
It's got to be
consensus.
hard. It
Here's what's
has to be.
interesting.
It's gotta be
Here's what's
hard.
interesting
Yeah.
now, okay? If you read through,
Uh-huh.
case in point, you're recalling me as a moderator of the town,
I've tried.
and my name is on that recall. And there are other names on that recall to replace me. My name can be on the ballot.
Yeah.
yes, that's
You
true.
can recall me, and you can reelect me in the same election.
As according to this, but there was interesting, because there's somewhere that they were discussing retail, was it a recall, it was a different state, where they actually are forbidden from being running.
All right.
Yes, there are
But
places.
that's the point, yes, and here's the thing, and I think it goes to some of your argument, Lou, that yes, you can get enough people to sign a petition to go to a recall, but the rest of the electorate are saying, no, we don't think, and you know what? We're gonna keep them in.
Yes.
So, that's a,
It's democracy.
it is, and it's a, I just want to be careful that we don't make it so easy
We're on the same page there.
that, you
Well,
know,
500 is too easy.
right.
Well, I take the number. You know what? 2,000 is too many. I
All
can
right,
just say that.
how about 1,150?
I don't know what that means.
That's 10% of the registered voters.
That's 10% of the registered voters. That's 1,000 signatures. 15% would be 1,600.
1,817, to be exact.
So those are the numbers. But again, Lou, if I as a voter am that annoyed with a member of the select board, then it's up to me, I take out my petition and say, I want to recall this person. I'm the one who's got to go out there, I've got to get the signatures, I've got to convince people. But the process is collecting the signatures, how many, and in what amount of time. It's having something in here that, this is the process, that allows for that.
I understand.
But I think you're still going on how egregious it should be. That's not relevant to the
But
process.
that's how I put process in place. What's the problem, and what's the process to solve that problem?
Problem is, somebody in the select board did something
No,
egregious.
it's not agreed. It says, the elected officer whose removal is sought and a statement of the grounds for recall. That's all it states.
Yeah,
So you're saying, I have a reason for recall. Doesn't need to
Could
be
be-
egregious?
851.
It could be chewing gum on a Sunday.
Right. You have to provide what the reason for the recall is.
Yeah.
So, Lou, what's a number you can live with?
I can live with any number, that's the reality. If you say 20%, and it's egregious, and the person has committed fraud,
No matter what they did,
but see, that,
no matter what they did, the wording is,
But we've set out
affidavit-
20%, we're going to set it aside.
I think 1,000 is perfect.
So then,
That's
if
about
That's 10%.
10%.
that's 10%.
can we live with 10% as a proposal?
I would be very happy with that.
John?
Sure, but what's the time frame?
2 days.
60 days. 60
John,
days.
60 days.
I think they tie together. For me, they tie together.
Could you live with 10% in 60 days?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
60 days, including Saturdays and Sundays, or?
Yeah, 60
Yeah,
days.
60 calendar
yeah,
days.
this is calendar.
And here's what that means.
Yeah.
That means that someone, and this is how easy it is if you look at it that way, has to stand at Shaw's for 4 hours, and they will get 20 signatures in that 4-hour period. So that's 20 signatures a day. That's 100 signatures a week. That's 800 signatures per month. So they'd have to push just a little harder. That's what,
We got 2 months.
yeah, that's doable.
Sure.
It also might give time for the whole thing to cool down and go away,
Yeah.
too.
And you also may not be able to collect those signatures, because what this group of people who are collecting signatures are exercised about,
Nobody cares.
nobody cares.
But
So
just,
you
Chewing gum on a Sunday. We don't
yeah,
We don't care.
but just by starting the process, you're going to bring about change.
Sometimes.
Maybe.
Sometimes.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily, maybe,
And don't forget, that person's name is going to, is being recalled, is going to be on the ballot.
That's right.
could be.
And this is going to drag out for 3 or 4 months, so
Well,
things,
it's not automatically on the ballot.
Yes, it is.
No, it is not.
No, it can be.
No, you still have to take out nomination
You
papers.
still have to take out nominations.
Right, they still have to take out the nomination papers, you know, it's not automatic.
so.
It's an interesting process, and hopefully we'll never have to find out how difficult it is.
Have you ever done it?
No.
No.
But
Because
has
it is a
been-
heavy lift.
it has been talked about because the parameters are so impossible, it's just hasn't been a viable option.
Yeah, why did you do that?
But here's the thing, let's throw the
Because it
ball.
was 1987. What do you want from me?
And people voted for in 1987.
Let's throw the ball.
Everybody voted in 1987.
Go ahead.
Let's throw the bomb.
Let's told the what?
Throw the bomb.
Go ahead.
When we start talking about compliance, it may rear its head again.
Yes, it may.
When we talk about compliance, which the goal, I believe, is education and not punitive, hopefully to educate in compliance. Yep, I'm doing something wrong, I need to make some changes here. But if changes are not made, and we're not in compliance, and we're blaming the wrong people because other people are not doing their job, well, we need to hold those people in compliance with the job they're supposed to be doing. And if they're not, there needs to be a succession of education, and if necessary, at some point, punishment to change the behavior. And then ultimately, the ultimate punishment could be recall. So I think it's viable to have it in there. I think the goal of creating a charter is something that is the constitution of this community, and people need to follow it. Not interpreting it, not creating careers for attorneys to be able to interpret what our charter is, but a simple, clear charter that can be enforced.
Of course, we're all going to be recalled by Linda if we keep going
Oh, it's
past our
8:11.
deadline.
Oh, no, there's not a Patriots football game on tonight, so I'm okay.
Is that what it's been about all this time?
It's been a personal thing.
So,
Yes, it has.
can we put this to bed for
It's
tonight?
good to be the
And-
chair.
Would you entertain a motion for adjournment then?
Well, I'd like to finish the conversation. Are we, so we can live with 60 days, we can live with 10%.
Yes.
We're going to, I just want to recap to make sure we all know what direction the little ducks are quacking.
And we want to research.
We want to research the 64, 90, all these dates. And the question of this 25%. I mean, it's actually, it's that by itself is an interesting benchmark.
Yeah.
Even though you go out on 854, and you collect your 10% of signatures, and you have this, if 25% of the people don't vote, then no matter who, no matter who is running as a candidate, none of them get elected.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about it. Do you do it double the amount that is necessary for signatures for recall? Because if you get 10% who will sign a petition for recall,
And go 20% on,
20% showing up at the polls. Because that same 10% will most likely turn out at the poll.
not necessarily.
We'll disagree with you on that, respectfully.
Respectfully
much.
disagree all you like. You're
Yes, ma'am.
talking human nature here.
I am.
It's much
People don't
easier to
vote.
sign a petition than it is to get your...
But again, here's the thing, it shouldn't be easy. Should it be 25? 25%, I believe, frankly, is impossible. We haven't had a 25% turnout. I can't remember the last time we had a 25% turnout.
I mean, we will have presidential elections with the dogfight
I
going
have a
on.
record of it somewhere.
No, I know, that's why
But
there's...
it doesn't happen, you know, it's not a
Can
consistent
I just make a
thing.
recommendation before we finish that? In that discussion with the town clerk, ask her for the last 3 to 5 years turnouts? So we have some facts that we can,
We haven't had
Well,
probably a
You
turn...
can see it right in the annual town meeting.
I know, but
Books.
I'm not going to look at those tonight.
I will.
And if you ask the town clerk, she could
She's
probably
not
tell you.
going to
off
ask the
top.
town clerk tonight either.
I'm not going to ask the town clerk tonight either.
Good, you can research.
There's an echo in
But it's
this
just so you
room.
go into the... Yeah, I've got all the books in my
This is, I hate
office,
this room.
and I just look at each
I
election
tried
and
looking for
pass.
that
It's not
stuff,
that
and I
hard.
couldn't find
Really,
it.
Richard,
What's
it's
that?
not that hard.
The 25%, how many
Get that.
people voted, what's they registered in town, and...
Well, I did a whole chart.
Again, I have another question.
Were you thinking of going lower?
Why have it?
I have what?
Why have any percentage? A vote is a vote, isn't it?
Well, let's see what we are, why those numbers exist.
Lou, you understand why they did it?
Yeah, I do, but also part of our charter is to really think through what we're doing.
Right.
And so I'm only posing the question that says, there's a number. Why is there a number? Do we have a number for select board members when they get elected?
We're asking those questions.
I know we are.
I think it's because it's a recall. vote,
Right.
and
It's
a special
recall.
vote.
Makes it
different.
harder.
Makes it harder.
Right, so,
So, and my thing, if nothing, and 300 people show up, I'd have a tough time with that.
Yeah,
so would I.
yeah, you need a place.
A benchmark,
But again, you don't want to make it impossible, you just want to make it hard.
yes.
Because basically, all this does, the Section 854 says, so say you pass the recall, so the person now is out of the select
Yeah.
board. We were talking about select board here, as opposed to any other elected
Right.
position, could be anybody elected. And it says, you know, as long as you don't have at least 25% of the people voting, none of the candidates win.
The whole thing is basically null and void. If you're one person under 25%, the whole thing is gone.
Isn't the whole idea that there needs to be enough momentum community-wide?
To do
that
something.
Shows a, not a
No,
consensus, but
you're making a good point. It's,
a significant amount of population.
Let's see what we can do before we decide what we're
Right.
going to do.
Yeah.
I think that's always helpful.
Okay.
so the 25% is not for the recall. It's just for the election of the
The
person
election of
the-
people,
who's going in.
yeah.
And if you're going to have a recall, we went through a situation the last couple of years where offices have remained vacant. And we
Longer
know,
than they should have.
right, that there are issues with that.
No, you see, it does have to be 25% on the recall. You have to read the whole sentence.
Did I,
The
Four.
highest number of voters shall be elected if at least 25% of those qualified to vote in the election shall have voted on the question of the recall.
right, but the recall does not require the 25%, the way I
Yeah.
read it.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It says the candidate being elected can only be put into office if it was 25%. That's my read of that sentence.
It says, if a majority of the votes cast upon the question
Right.
of recall is in the affirmative, therefore, there could be 6 people voting, and they vote in the
I
affirmative.
see, yeah, you're right.
So it's this 25% is with the candidate.
So I still have a problem with the 25%, because if you have a recall, and the vote of the recall is in the affirmative, and you've got candidates there to fill the position,
you get
Well, if you kick somebody off the,
They are kicked off the select
if they're
board.
kicked off whatever elected position
Right.
they hold, and they fail to elect during the recall, and there's a sufficient space of time between the recall and the next town election, then the select board will call a special election, which will simply require whoever gets the highest
We're going to
vote.
require them to do that this time?
Well, we need to talk about that.
We'll look.
So,
That's a shell thing,
but
right?
my point is I think if we're going to go through the recall and people are going to go through it says, the normal election procedures, they should be elected. That's why I'm very, very willing, Lou, to go along with you in get rid of that 25%.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Okay, so we are,
Well, let's hold that for the next meeting.
all right,
But then this automatically becomes a special town vote, or whatever.
Well, it
correct
serves
term is.
instead of a special election.
Right.
Right.
The recall becomes a
is
special
the special
yeah, it is
election.
a special, it is a special election.
And that's the irony of it all, is the person can be recalled and can be reelected in the same election.
Well, unless we can say no.
We could,
Doesn't happen.
we could ask the question, another question for the consultant. Does Mass General Law, could we say the person under recall, the person being voted on to be recalled?
You can't run
I
away.
will tell you right now,
Can't
I would have a
run.
major problem with that.
But
Major
it's a
problem.
question to ask.
Oh, I agree, but I would still, that's something I will
Yeah.
A major,
lobby
pro-
very heavily
a
against.
major problem in which direction exactly?
I think any election, anyone should be able to run, period.
Okay.
And here's the thing, if someone is recalled and 300 people show up to recall, okay, you can't elect someone, he couldn't be elected, but he could run again. But if we say in this recall article that they cannot run for that position again, we're discriminating against someone, I think we can't do that.
I agree.
Well, you'd only be saying it within that election.
Can't, I just don't think you can do it. I personally don't.
It's interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you personally don't, but let's get an actual factual answer.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's, your opinion is you don't like it, but I don't know if that's factual. So let's get a factual answer.
No, that's fine. If
It's a
they
fact-
actually say, sure, you can say, no, they can't run again, I'm going to stand in my head to convince you
Yeah,
otherwise.
It's a
But
fact,
that's
it's a
okay.
fact that it's your opinion though, right?
What?
It's a fact that it's your opinion.
There you go.
Let's not go there, it's late.
It's late.
Just
Okay.
Trying to help.
So next week, we will take up
Knitting.
knitting, yes, knitting.
You sure, really sure you want to do this, huh? After sitting here?
So Linda,
So, no?
He can't
So next
wait.
week will be Chapter 6, the elected agencies. What vote?
what time is the election next week?
What election?
Are we going to elect one of these three gentlemen?
I would
6:30.
hope so.
Can you set us, again, I'm going to make a special trip to come in,
He's,
so I'm going to ask for a time.
before Sally strangles him, he has to take her out for their anniversary. So he's going to take her out to dinner. He's going to run back in here for 7:15.
Why don't you go the night before? So you can take your time with your lovely wife.
Go after
And she is
midnight.
a lovely wife.
We are ready-made reservations.
Oh, okay.
What time do you guys have dinner?
5:30, so it's,
Oh,
right after I can.
So he's going to bring her here. She's going to have her roses.
We're gonna
She's
sing-
going to be all cheery.
We're going to
with
sing happy
wine.
anniversary.
And she's going to say, I'm going to show you a good time, honey.
Yeah, and you don't, and don't spend anything over $50 for.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.